Welcome to Oddball. Amin's coming to us from Oklahoma City, where the Thunder have evened up the series 123 to 107. I like the live action feel of this. There's like people around in the background. Amin, right from the top, main story about this game too.
All right, so first of all, like my location is right by where the Thunder locker room tunnel is. So
okay,
you're going to see a lot of activity in the background.
Great. I'll describe it if necessary.
Yes, there you go. Aaron Wiggins just walked by the way. Big hero.
Wasn't necessary. Thank you, though. Not
necessary. Okay. No, but the history of this team all season long has been, after a loss, it's a resounding answer, right? It's not just they don't lose back-to-backs or 2 games in a row. It's they beat your ass, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what happened tonight. First of all, they did a much better job on the glass. The offensive rebounding opportunities that the Pacers were feasting on in game 1 were not present. They still, even though the turnover count was a lot lower, they definitely got their way in terms of creating offense off of those turnovers. Mm-hmm. And, the third part, I think this is the most important part. SGA got help, and the help came from some unexpected sources like an Aaron Wiggins, but also from the people that you kind of rely on. Jalen Williams had a great game, and Chet Holmgren had a great game. What I really liked about it was the aggression. He went out there, and he, from the opening tap, was intent on making an impact, and he did.
I'll give you that. I'll give you Chet. Chet was, a lot more impactful, especially early on, really sort of set the tone. Jalen Williams, when things were close, was not good. Anything, he finished with 5 of 14 for 19 points. But it was exactly like, it's everything that you wanted from a response game. And you just so happened to get the 18 points from Andrew Wiggins and the 12 from Alex Caruso. There was some conversation, you didn't hear this during the broadcast, about why Tyrese Haliburton wasn't more aggressive. Like that, it's a little bit of a head scratcher for me that people say that, is because he is, like we said, he's the point guard, right? He really gets going if somebody else gets going with him, but it's never really been Tyrese, just go get yours. And so this idea that he needs to be the tone setter in terms of scoring, do you think that there's more there from him, or do you think this is pretty much his role the entire time?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think it's fair to expect him to be aggressive when the offense isn't operating, right? Like, I think that's the big thing, is that I get it. And we went through this when I was in Phoenix with Steve Nash, where Steve wanted to set people up. Steve didn't want to be aggressive offensively. Mm-hmm. But like, I can't remember how many times you used to say this on the broadcast. Steve Nash senses the moment, and he senses like, it's not working. So now I have to unveil like what probably could have been a 25 point per game scorer his entire career if that were his everyday mentality. Tyrese has a lot of things that reminds me of Steve Nash in that way, and that he wants to impact the game as a facilitator and as someone who's kind of touching different parts of that aren't necessarily captured in a box score.
Right.
But there has to be that recognition of, we don't have it going. I need to do something. Now, some people might say he trusts his teammates. He trusts them to, if he keeps facilitating them, they're going to get it going. And like, the crazy thing is the building was nervous the whole time. Like, yeah, they were up 20, but like every time they would hit like a Neesmith 3 here or an and one there from Siakam, and it's like everyone just started getting.
So it's like they learned their lesson from not being as alert from game 1. But the part about Tyrese, though, it's almost like, because he knew his team could make a huge comeback at any time, that he didn't really have to push the panic button. It's like when he finally did push the panic button, might have been a little bit too late.
A little too late. But also, let's be honest, they got what they came for in terms of the split. So right now they are, even as after a pretty tough loss tonight, they're still kind of feeling about like, yeah, we achieved the mission, so to speak. And you go back to Indiana for 2, and we'll see how it goes there. Again, Izzy, I got to go back to, would love to have seen what this series would look like if we were still doing the 2-3-2.
Yeah, that
right?
added
like
a whole lot
scenario?
elements to break down a series back when it was 2-3-2. Now when it's 2-2, 1-1-1, it's like it seems more fair. So there's not a whole lot of roller coastery to go around. There's a little bit more drama back then. But in terms of Indy, like what sort of strategic game plan has to change for them to keep Alex Caruso and Andrew Wiggins from going off? Because obviously they're not going to stop Shea. Like Shea's going to get somewhere between 30 and 40. And if, 40 plus, if he's having a great night, but it feels like they can control Jalen Williams. It feels like Chet Holmgren's not really going to explode for you. So if you can keep those guys off the board, like how do you do that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't, the simple answer is I don't think you can. I think that's what you live with. If you're Indiana, you say, I live with that. Look, Alex Caruso going to have to, I'll live with that, right? Aaron Wiggins going to come in and hit a bunch of threes. I'll live with that. You got to live with it. I think the part that's a little bit more difficult is, first of all, it's not like you helped out on Shea much. And I got to shout out Eddie Johnson on this one. He said, I get that the strategy is we're going to guard Shea one-on-one, but maybe every once in a while just to mix it up, just to surprise him. Like we're just gonna watch this slow march down the drain. And then the other part of it is, again, like Chet Holmgren really put his imprint on the game. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention this. The two big lineup, right? What they ended up doing is that they basically ran it a bunch when Siakam wasn't on the floor. And so that kind of alleviates some of the issues as far as, hey, if we're going too big, does that mean we've got Chet on Siakam and Siakam being a lot more kind of laterally mobile,
right? Might
present problems. But in those minutes where those guys ran together, I'm trying to find the details that have not updated on NBA.com yet. But from my kind of like my naked eye, the two big lineup was tremendous for them tonight.
Can you help me out with something? I know I was watching on TV. You were watching it there. What I saw, because we talked about the NBA Finals trophy being on the floor, or at least the Finals logo, some sort of like a fancy graphic. Today, turned on the game, Amin, and there were two kind of tiny logos on the floor. It seemed like, and it clearly wasn't real. It clearly wasn't put on the floor, right? You didn't see logos on the floor, right?
Okay. I'm looking at the floor right now. There are no logos on it.
It seemed like they didn't want to make them any bigger than the advertisements that were on the floor, that were showing on the floor, because they weren't bigger than any of those. And then, oddly, and they're also both facing the same direction, which people, when you're watching on TV, you're just like, well, obviously you should have one. The crowd should be facing the crowd on each side, so it should be the opposite way.
If you look at like, so right now I'm looking at their floor. I believe this is true of every NBA floor. Hey, how's it going? They're good. So
say hello
every NBA floor has all the signage, all the logos, everything, all face the cameras.
Okay.
So if you're sitting on the bench, I'm sitting pretty much behind where the Thunder bench was. And so the TV cameras are there because the TV cameras are always facing the benches. All the things on the floor are going to be facing the cameras. So that was accurate for them to put them both facing that way.
Okay.
The part that's crazy is I did see like a little video. I think Arash Markazi posted it. And he said, how can you tell? It was like his caption was, how can you tell it's digitally imposed? And, they're waving like the OKC flag. And then you see it kind of just pop up, superimposed on the flag and superimposed on other things. Yeah. And that's the problem with that kind of makeshift style kind of solution is you're bound to run into those.
You made it worse,
and
oddly late in the game when it was pretty much out of hand. I know this because I switched the game from the big TV to the little TV. Then they went with the logo.
On the big TV?
Yeah, no, the big TV was it was the Last of Us. I'm trying to catch up on that. And so, the little TV, and I saw the logo on there, the Finals in script, and I was like, well, that's weird, because if people were wondering if it was real and maybe had a question mark in their head, now they know for sure during that timeout they didn't just switch it to the Finals logo. I don't really know what they were doing there. It's probably the biggest mistake Adam Silver's ever made.
So you switched to The Last of Us. So you missed the Johnny Furphy minutes.
No, oddly enough, I saw it. He fouled Shea, which is amazing. Like first seconds on the floor. And Furphy. Are we sure that's a real name?
Dude, it's like fake Murphy, right? Isn't that what that is?
Yes, it's exactly that. Back to the basketball. I mean, what do we think of the series now? Because like we've gotten shaken off the rust. We've gotten the first 2 games out of the way. Indiana, the first game, the crazy comeback sort of masked the idea that they don't really seem to have a consistent offensive flow.
Right.
So do you see that changing in any way when they get to Indiana?
No, this is how they've been all year long. So I don't see anything changing. And again, like this is the part where, everyone loves to overreact to a game 1 loss, but yeah, man, OKC over time is going to prove itself to be the better team because that's how this thing works. That's why we don't play single elimination in the playoffs. While we have a little bit of time, I did want to shout out Don Nelson won the Chuck Daly Lifetime Achievement Award. It's the award that the NBA Coaches Association gives out. There was 2 really important things that came out of this press conference. Number 1, this is the first time for him on the mainland in 7 years.
Wow.
And the first time he's wearing shoes in 6 years.
Wow.
The shoes he wore are Luka Doncic Jordans. And he said, I'm wearing them in protest of the trade.
Yes.
So that's one. The other thing, and this is huge, he told a story about how they drafted Dirk and how they flew him into a secret workout. Nobody knew, and they tried to hide him, and they were worried. And on draft day, like, they made the trade, obviously, to trade it down from 6 to 9 with Milwaukee. Now, here's the part I didn't know. He said, my favorite player in the draft was Paul Pierce. We all thought Paul Pierce would be a top 3 pick and wouldn't even be like an option. So imagine their surprise when at 9, Dirk's on the board, which is their guy, the guy that they went through all these pains to kind of hide and stash, basically. But also, Paul Pierce is on the board.
Wow.
And so Don Nelson's like, him and Donnie, he told Donnie, like, oh, what do we do? And Donnie was like, look, man, we kind of did all this to get this German kid. Like, we can't back out now. And that's how Dirk Nowitzki ended up to be a Maverick, and Paul Pierce ended up being a Celtic.
Wow,
so I thought that
made
was
the
a
right
cool
choice.
story.
Let's be honest. Made the right choice. Can I tell you my experience from watching Don Nelson get the award? Man, they played this still shot, or it wasn't a still shot. It was a video of him and Rick Carlisle accepting the award, and they were sitting there, and they kept the camera on him for about 30 seconds too long. I mean, it was just, I was like, all right, let's get the camera off of Mr. Don Nelson here. And then making matters worse, because, I mean, I don't know what the hell Don was wearing. Making matters worse, they cut to him in the crowd. He had some popcorn, food all in the corner of his mouth. And then they kept on that one for longer than they should have, too. Nah, I wouldn't be too happy with these producers and directors if I was Don Nelson today.
He doesn't care. That's the great thing about Don Nelson.
Yeah, he's probably just got to get a foot massage. Hasn't worn shoes in
By the
forever.
way, he quit smoking and drinking, if you can believe
I was
that.
going to say, I couldn't tell if he looked really good or if he looked bad. It's one of those deals, right? Wait, did he lose a lot of weight because he's sick or is he like super healthy? So it's probably the healthy one.
Yeah.
All right. Shout out Don Nelson. That's it for Oddball.
Yep.